When Hawthorn Does Its Job. Written by Johnny Fist. Galina Mikhailovna Tuz was an elderly woman who, throughout her life, had come to love only two things, Brezhnev and Hawthorn tincture. She had seen the great leader on television and fell wildly in love with his voice when she was still very young. His stirring eyebrows, calm voice, and ability to kiss passionately awakened her first maiden love. She fell for him completely. She never missed any of his speeches, even when she was still in school. For many years she prayed to God to allow her to die on the same day as Brezhnev. Of course, she did not mean November 10th, 1982. Back then she was still full of life, and mourned his death deeply. She even wanted to take her own life. She was that devastated by his passing, but in her old age she wished for the date of Brezhnev's death to coincide with the date of her own death. And in her case, she wanted it to happen at the age of 75 as well. It was summer, and on that day she turned 75. My God, how she had waited for this year. The year when she would become the same age as her first and truly only love. She dreamed that when she died, the newspaper Sovechitsa, her favorite paper, which published advice on how to make life better, how to preserve food properly, how to knit, what was healthiest to watch on television, would print an obituary. Galina Mikhailovna Tuz died on the same day as the great leader Leonid Ilyich Brezhnev. They were both 75. They left an indelible mark on history. We remember, we love, we mourn. This was her most cherished wish. For many years she'd muttered to herself that life would be unfair to her if this did not happen. She believed in fate, in horoscopes, and in the housing maintenance office. Although her relationship with the latter had always been somewhat strained, still, she never lost faith in it. So, to leave no doubt about life's injustice, Galina Mikhailovna decided to act in advance. On the day of her 75th birthday, she herself wrote to the newspaper Sovechitsa, asking them to publish that very text, the one constantly spinning in her head, in the obituary section on November 10th. The newspaper staff, who were not used to such extraordinary requests, even called her back to make sure she wasn't insane. But when her simple answer was followed by 57 minutes of explanations, including the history of the party, a description of Brezhnev's personality cult, and his role in Tuz's life, they simply issued the customer an invoice and asked her to pay it at the nearest bank. Galina Mikhailovna was pleased. Her dream would come true. Thus on her birthday she could peacefully move on to her second passion, Hawthorn. Galina Mikhailovna made the Hawthorn tincture herself. Since her early years, her grandmother, who had lived through both World War I and the Great October Revolution, had taught her how to prepare it when she was still just a young girl, and to make it in such a way that even pharmacists would envy it. Her grandmother explained that the tincture should be drunk when the heart hurts, but the heart, as the veteran of many wars explained, can ache not only from physical illness, but also from love. On the day Tuz fell in love with Brezhnev, she realized her heart was aching, which meant it was time to drink Hawthorn. Since then, her heart never stopped hurting, and with the years, physical pain was added to it as well. What wouldn't one do for a loved person? One could even drink Hawthorn. Galina Mikhailovna went to the pantry where she kept her reserves of the drink. Turning on the light, she let her eyes run along the shelves lined with countless small bottles of Hawthorn tincture. Each had its own label. The purple one was for celebrations, so she took 15 bottles at once, just in case she wouldn't have to come back again. She wanted a real celebration. Humming some ordinary tune to herself, she left the pantry and went into the room. After placing the bottles on the table, Tuz approached the radio receiver and turned the dial. Her favorite frequency, 87.6. Music from those years played there, the year she came from. From the radio came the music of The Dying Swan. Galina Mikhailovna remembered how she once attended a performance by Maya Plisetskaya, when the ballerina, in her tutu, gave her finest performance on stage. Thank God it's not Swan Lake, Tuz thought. She sat down on the sofa next to the table and reached for the first bottle. The music inspired her greatly on this festive day. Memories flooded in. All 75 years of her life rushed past in a single second. She remembered every 5-year period of her life with a new bottle. The first 5 years were difficult. They were starving. The Hawthorn went down. When she turned 10, her father died. The Hawthorn went down. At 15, she experienced love and saw Leonid Ilyich for the first time. The Hawthorn went down. At 20, she was already working at a factory. The Hawthorn went down. At 25, someone proposed marriage to her, but she was a steadfast woman. The Hawthorn went down. At 30, she was ready to become a widow, though she had never married at 25. The Hawthorn went down. At 35, she moved to the city. The Hawthorn went down. At 40, she found a permanent job where she worked until 70. The Hawthorn went down. At 45, she wanted something new and moved to another city. The Hawthorn went down. At 50, she despaired of life. The Hawthorn went down. At 55, her love of life returned. The Hawthorn went down. At 60, she found new friends. The Hawthorn went down. At 65, the new friends died. The Hawthorn went down. At 70, she decided to end her new life and figure out how to live further. The Hawthorn went down. And 75 was today, and she was full of strength for anything. The Hawthorn went down. Only after finishing the last bottle did Galina Mikhailovna Tuz feel a slight excitement. Perhaps a high note had just been played, or perhaps new memories had washed over her. Then he appeared before her eyes, Leonid Ilyich Brezhnev. She kept her eyes tightly shut so as not to scare him away. A faint smile appeared on her face. He muttered something indistinct. As he used to do, his bushy eyebrows seemed to be looking at her. He leaned toward her to kiss her properly, the way he knew how. At that very moment, the Hawthorn bottle slipped from her hand. Exactly as the final chord of The Dying Swan was played,